Well, hello, everybody. It's God's Comic Brad Stein. This is Brad Stein Has Issues, where comedy, Christianity, and conservatism collide in a cacophony of clarity. Speaking of comedy, we will be having the best-selling Christian female comic, actually, female comic, period, of all time. Chonda Pierce is my guest. That's right. She has sold more albums than any other female comedian in the entire world in human history. And she's a Christian. So she was doing Leanne Morgan before there was a Leanne Morgan, and she's an old friend. And she will be here discussing feminism and femalism and comedianism. And we will be having some fun and, just exploring life. One man, one woman, both who do comedy and both who are Christ followers. I am Brad Stein, God's comic, as the New Yorker called me. My sidekick is Wyatt Leroy Stein. He's my son. Plus, he also likes to do special tattoos on the side where he uses only the ink of rare snails. Wyatt, how are you? Good to have you back with us tonight. I know you weren't sure you were going to make it because you were suffering from diarrhea.
Well, no, it's because my tattoo business is really taking off.
How's it going? Is it killing?
Well, to be honest, it's moving at a snail's pace.
Well, that's a shell of a thing to admit, I'll tell you.
I wasn't going for the snail puns. Why are you starting with the snail puns? It's a serious business.
Just call me slow.
And you know what? It's jokes like that are stopping me from being the premier tattoo artist in the country.
Yeah.
Not the fact that I have a very terrible catalog of tattoo stuff. Not the fact I'm not an artist. Not the fact that I deliberately waste time to help with the whole snail theme. It's specifically comments like that.
Well, I think the originally tattoos, and they've been around a long time, they took like a bone and would have it attached to something, and they would hit it and then maybe put in like, I don't know, some kind of dirt into the holes. But they've made tattoos for thousands of years, Wyatt, and women are huge into tattoos. Used to be, if you were a woman with tattoos, you were in a sideshow. There was money to be made, Wyatt. And speaking of sideshows, I don't know if that's something you've ever been part of or ever experienced. Have you ever gone to a sideshow?
I'm not sure if it counts as a sideshow.
Why?
But I know that our family has a history of being, unique.
How so?
In the sideshow kind of way.
Well, more in the carnival. We weren't necessarily sideshow people.
Well, I didn't say exactly like I said in that sort of way. It's sort of adjacent.
Yeah, well, it's no sideshow adjacent. Yes, from the Midway. Yeah, my people are carnies and still are involved in a few left in the carnival. They run it. They're not the toothless tilt-a-whirlers. Not that there's anything wrong with tilt-a-whirl, toothless twirlers, but nevertheless, the sideshow is where they used to have people pay to go look at a woman with tattoos, or a woman with a beard, or a half woman, or a woman with nubs for hands, or a woman who has hair all over her face. And it wasn't just a woman. Men jumped in too, with like their body attached to them and stuff. But I've got books on this. I've shown it to you. I'm sure I did as a child when you wouldn't mind. I would wait for you to go to sleep, and then I'd read you a tale of a man with a disembodied head attached to him, just so that you'd understand what's at stake if you didn't listen to your old man.
What's at stake? Oh, well, I mean, hold on, give me a second.
Yeah, this is going to take a lot of post-editing to make this sound coherent.
It doesn't take post-editing. It takes coherence and a general understanding of what you're doing.
Okay, well.
All things you can expect to see on this show.
And as you know, Chonda Pierce will be talking to us today. We just had Tim Hawkins not that long ago, White. He was also a comic, but he wasn't a girl. Never was a girl, nor does he intend to become a woman. But, women are uniquely different than men. Wyatt, did you ever think there'd come a time in human history when saying that men and women are different would become controversial?
Honestly, it seems more like a Monty Python sketch, what we have right now.
Wyatt, it was a Monty Python sketch, but it wasn't on Monty Python's Flying Circus. It was in a very, very funny, maybe the second funniest comedy movie of all time, and it's called
Life of Brian?
Right, because everybody knows that the funniest movie ever made was
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Amen. How many times have you seen it?
Honestly, more times than I can count.
And can you basically memorize all?
Pretty much, yeah.
I know, it's so brilliant. Oh my goodness, so wonderful. And again, I saw it when it first hit theaters when I was 15 years old. What? That's how old your old man is. And I saw it. I watched it in theaters way back in the day. It was a double feature. And I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was. And I've said this before, but it bears repeating. It had a moment in that show where I laughed out loud and couldn't stop laughing through a scene that took place that I saw for the first time, and I just had never laughed and cried and couldn't speak ever at a movie film. I don't laugh a lot anyways, as that was, and it happened to be the scene. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been the first scene they filmed, believe it or not, the bridge. So that's the one that absolutely knocked me for a loop. And now keep in mind, the surprise is over, but the first time you see it, oof. And it was, of course, trying to cross the bridge of despair. So anyways, that's a whole nother topic, but we are talking about women today. And you know, I was just in Arizona. I should mention this. I was in Lake Havasu. We talked about this before, but I wanted you guys last week, but I did want you to know that I did want to revisit something I was trying to do years ago, but I wasn't good at it because I didn't know how to edit. What I like to call a special thing called vicarious vacations. You see, I've been so many places. I meet so many interesting people. I've seen such interesting things, including the world's largest ball of twine, that I thought, well, why don't I film myself in front of these things and send it to people like you who sit on the couch in your underpants and watch my show, unless you're on live audio listening to my show, and that means you're driving in your car, which means if you're in your underpants, go directly home and have yourself tested for cognitive problems. But either way, I want you to know that I did see something in Lake Havasu that's been there since 1971, and you've never seen it because you haven't been there, but I have. And so I wanted to see if we can revisit a segment that we might use every now and again that Wyatt is going to have a clever intro for, that he's cobbling together with his own little editing skills. So please welcome this vicarious vacation to London Bridge. Wyatt, let him take a trip. Hey Earth, it's God's Comic Brad Stein, and this is an exclusive for Brad Stein's podcast, Brad Stein Has Issues, what I like to call a vicarious vacation. What is my vicarious vacation? Well, it's where I take you somewhere, let you meet someone, or show you something you would have never been able to get to yourself because you're too lazy. So I take a vacation for you because I travel so much. Today, I am in Lake Havasu, Arizona. And folks, I think if you're like me, when I think desert, Arizona, rattlesnakes, and all kinds of cactus, why, I think England. Wait, England? What do you mean? Well, because in Lake Havasu, they had the bright idea to purchase, are you ready? London Bridge. That's right, the same London Bridge that apparently England couldn't get rid of fast enough because it was decrepit. I even did a joke about it. I'll show you that right here. They don't sing songs about England in England. Think about that. There's no God Bless England. Their most famous song is about how bad their bridges are. I mean, they sing about it. And then they just keep rubbing it in. I'd say one verse and leave it alone. But they just don't stop. London Bridge is falling down. That is so sad. I'm sorry. Falling down. Oh, I'm sorry to... Falling down. Okay, I'm sorry to hear. London Bridge is falling. I get it. Your bridges suck. My fair lady. You told your lady? No American man would have told his lady his bridge was falling apart. How's the bridge doing, babe? Doing fine. I threw a little duct tape on it, but we're hanging in there, baby. See, I'm hysterical. Anyways, we're here at London Bridge, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Here it is, folks. There it is from a long long distance away. Look at that. London Bridge. And the good news is, it's not fallen down yet. Here, you want to go for a walk across the bridge? I'll show you what it looks like. That, I guess, is an old London Bridge something or other. There we go. 1971. Arizona said, I'll know what'll bring people to our area, to this giant state that has the Grand Canyon. Sure, we have the Grand Canyon, but what we need is somebody else's bridge. Here I am, walking over the bridge. Kind of a nice view, though. And we continue to walk over London Bridge, which does, in fact, go over Lake Havasu Inlet. So at least there is some pretense of a water area that you have to escape from. Down there, of course, you can get all kinds of places to walk and buy drinks. And of course, America's going to turn something into some kind of booze fest. But nevertheless, here we are walking, and there's some birds hanging out. Obviously, birds that have been fed so much, they've become welfare birds. They are dependent now on tourists giving them French fries. We continue to walk over the bridge. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to go all the way across. It takes too long and it's kind of boring. But anyways, here's the original, I don't know what they are. Pillars, are they called? Or something or other. Nevertheless, the bridge continues. The birds have not left. Clearly, they are strung out on meth. But we are walking back to the end of the bridge. Anyways, it's kind of like a lot of things that you can look at. It's kind of hard to show you. I mean, it's kind of redundant. But nevertheless, this is what it looks like. I doubt when Jack the Ripper was running the show, did he ever suspect one day this bridge that he used to escape by was going to be a tourist attraction? Well, it's also their balloon fest they've had this weekend. And a couple of the balloons way out there, if you can see them, apparently got lost and are just getting back now. Meanwhile, their passengers have expired. Anyways, this is God's Comic Brad Stein. This is another vicarious vacation that's exclusive only on my podcast, Brad Stein Has Issues. If you are a subscriber, then we will try to give you more fun things to see and watch. In the meantime, I've got to go. I'm done with the bridge excursion. And now I have to relieve myself. This is what happens when you're getting older. Okay, folks. See you, Earth. God's Comic. Brad Stein giving you another adventure you could never have done without me. See you next time. Well, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. I know that as you looked at the London Bridge, I know that as I set it up, you were expecting something much more intriguing. I'm sorry, that's all it was. It was a bridge, and it was in London, but it's not. Now it's in Arizona. So that alone should give us pause. But nevertheless, here we sit on this Monday wondering about life and ladies. And I got to tell you this, something happened to me, Wyatt, when I was driving in Arizona. I flew into Las Vegas. I don't know, have you ever been to Las Vegas, son?
Las Vegas? I don't think so.
Not missing anything.
Yeah.
Not missing anything.
Probably overstimulating all the lights and stuff.
A lot of lights. So yeah, if you have schizophrenia, if you suffer from epilepsy, then yes, you would be groveling and shaking on the ground, maybe foaming at the mouth if you're lucky.
And if you have a severe gambling addiction, welcome.
Oh, indeed, indeed. You know, I made a joke about this many years ago, and I don't even remember. You know, it's funny, son. Sometimes I come across old routines of mine, and I wonder, did I even record this somewhere? Because I don't remember what's on my albums. But it was a joke about Vegas. I said the thing that was interesting about Vegas was its entire business model is you give me $1,000 of your money, and I will give you nothing. Absolutely nothing.
No.
And then after 3 days, I'll double it. Go ahead.
No. You do get something for gambling.
What do you get?
Crippling debt.
That's right. And the embarrassment and shame of waking up in vomit, wondering why your wife has left you. But Wyatt, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about women. And as I was driving from Vegas to Lake Havasu, I had a rental car, and the rental car, and you know this because you have a car that has the cruise control, which everybody has now, right? But it's got that special robotic, spooky AI cruise control that literally will slow you down if you get too close to the guy in front of you, or signal you if you're accidentally crossing the line without signaling. I take it all off. It's ridiculous. But White, here's what I wanted to say to you. So I'm driving, right? And I'm almost like veering a little bit because maybe I'm looking at trying to get a YouTube thing on my.
Yeah, you gotta have your playlist on.
Gotta have a playlist, or maybe I'm, whatever I'm doing. But the point is, I somehow wasn't perfectly squared between the two lines and not in any way veering 1.5 inch here and there. And eventually, one of these features of the car popped up, and it was a big steaming pot of coffee. A light shows up as a pot of coffee, and it says you might want to consider pulling over. You might want to think about, because I'm not comfortable with you driving. It appears that you staying within the lines is asking too much. You need some coffee. You need to pull over to the side station. You got to get off the road. You're endangering everybody. And I thought to myself, you know what? Of all the features they thought a car needed in this modern age, I understand you're low on oil or low on gas. No way did I ever anticipate that the one missing feature that would really make this experience, especially as a man driving solo, what we're missing is the nagging wife feature.
Well, I mean, my car does something similar.
What does it do?
Well, if you go even slightly off the line in my car, it'll scream at you.
What does it say?
Ah! Get off! Get back in the side of the... Oh, thank you, did it. Okay,
So you have the screaming wife, or we can call it the backseat driver.
Well, yeah, but it's in the front seat.
Right, which is even worse.
Oh yeah, it's what do they call that when you're in the shotgun?
It's called shotgun, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they call it shotgun, you know why?
Well, yeah, because in the olden days, somebody needed the shotgun, and it was always the person in the top of the coach.
No, they call it shotgun because that person there won't shut up and you want to shoot them.
But yeah, but why with the shotgun? That's so messy.
Well,
I mean, I
yeah.
guess it's accurate, but is it worth it?
It's not accurate, but it spreads. So
This came up in like what, the 1800s? This
Yeah.
was a flintlock.
shotgun
or
was no, it wasn't flintlock in the 1800s.
matchlock. My bad.
Wyatt, they were on a stagecoach in shotgun. They had the shotgun in the stagecoach. That's where it came from, literally. So you were
Yeah,
close.
but do you want to waste the ammo on the person you didn't even want to invite on the buggy in the first place?
Nah. Plus, I don't want imprisonment because here I am trying to make a show and trying to be a good Christian man. And I'm going to tell you something. To be a good Christian man and to have a good witness, shooting your passenger, I'm going to say people frown on it. They just, ministry, when you put that in your bio, studied at Southern Evangelical Seminary, PhD doctorate in evangelicalism, and shot a passenger that wouldn't shut up. It doesn't go down like it used to. Back in the Roman times, they would have thought, oh, this guy's he's a warrior.
It's so that's unfortunate. Like our country is losing its traditions.
Right. Well, son, but this happens, especially when they walk away from, the times when people were more masculine and stood for something strong and vigorous. And now, of course, we've feminized men. Wyatt, I don't even think you know what that means, but I did lots of comedy about if there's one topic you can't go wrong with when it comes to comedy, it's men and women. It is the oldest problem in the book, causing conflict and difficulty and all kinds of crazy. And so everybody laughs because everybody understands that women are crazy and men have to deal with it. That's the key. So I did a joke, many, but I chose one that I thought you guys might get some kicks out of, because again, the theme is women, and Chonda Pierce will be here soon. But for right now, here's a little comedy I did quite a while ago, but hopefully it's still funny. And if it's not, I'll never know unless you sign something in this thread, and then I'll be happy to see what you say. Anyways, well, I just played the thing. They're just different. We have people in this country that don't believe that anymore. That men and women are different. Listen, all you have to do is be married for 10, 15 minutes. and you will realize that we are from different worlds. That's what makes it great, because it's hard to stay married. And when you do, you've done something courageous and done something of character and have left something of a legacy to your kids. That's what America was built on. Courage and conviction and commitment to one idea. I'm going to be here till I die. We need to be honest enough to realize we ain't the same. This whole idea of gender neutrality, we're all exactly the same. Back in the 70s, I mean, the 70s had to be the biggest screwball decade in the history of this country. He knows. Yeah, that was from me. I was in the 70s. That's what they said, man. They said, you know, just give dolls to little boys. Let's not sort of try to tell them what gender they're. Just give dolls to little boys. They'll play with them. Yeah, they do. You know what they play? How fast can I pull off its head? Because they're aggressive. They're different. Intellectually, men and women are different. Completely different intellectually. Because we don't even have the same name. Not even the same name. You got a ma'am, you got a man. You got a male, you got a female. So apparently we're all man-male, but women achieve the fee and the woe. Why? Why is your name 2 letters better than ours? Apparently, women achieved a higher rank of some kind. A superiority that allowed them to take the superior name. Oh, I agree. There's things about women that are better than men. Number 1, women are better looking than guys. There it is. Guys aren't even arguing like, eh. Oh, he's right on that. Yeah, that's true. You are. You're more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. That's why there's so much more artwork made out of women than out of men, because you're better looking. You were designed that way. That's why you got the better looking name, so we could tell you apart. Look at him, you go, man. Look at her, you go, whoa. You're the more attractive man. Better looking. That's why God made man first, so he could practice. Oh, yeah, God's like, Whoa. All right, I'm going to go rest. I'm done. I'm good. There you go. More attractive than men. Better looking. Plus, women have power because women have purses. Women can survive in the desert for years with the items in their purse alone. Amelia Earhart is alive somewhere. Eating lipstick. I never even look at a woman's purse. They have things in there men have never seen before. Strange products. Vaseline, lip therapy. So in a girl's purse, lip therapy. What do? Put it on your lips and says, tell me about your mother. What happens? They've got an ointment in case their lips can't find their self-esteem. Oh, thank you so much. Women have purses. Purses have purse strings. Purse strings means money. Money is power. Women have purses. They have power. Does that mean they're better than men? No. It means you've made yourselves more valuable than men. Why? Because women are more committed to the relationship, which makes for a strong family and community and culture. They're better at that than men are. Men are no good at that. We have to learn. We try. Yes, dear, I will love you and only you for all. There goes another one. More committed to the relationship, stronger. Men see the woman they want, they go after them. If they say no, we're out. Women see the man they want, they go grab him. Not by the lapel, by the soul. Till you gotta have him. Till you can't live without him. And by the way, women don't just give themselves away like men do. They make you earn them. And that's why you got a male and you got a female. Because you can have that male for free. But with this male, there's a fee involved. You want to, whoa, man, it's going to cost you. And it should. You're the best of us. You're the best of us. I know. I have no problem with that. See that? Look at that. I have no problem saying you're better at that than me. You're better at that than me. That's what we've lost. Now we're all the same. Let's not use a red marker when we grade the papers. The children might feel ashamed. You get good grades? Yeah? What, A's? Yeah, good. Good for you. Because if you didn't, I'd take a big fat red marker and go, there! Now go take your self-esteem and study. That's what I would. God bless you. Somebody's taught you that. You have some family that taught you to study, brother. Taught you to go out there and earn your keep like an American. That's what I'm talking about. Knowing who we are, what we're all about. And that's why I want to see difference. Yes, we are a pluralistic nation. Yes, we have people from different cultures and genders, and we need to celebrate that, of course. But we were supposed to be out of many one. You were supposed to bring the elements of your culture to this country, share it with the rest of us, and then become an American. I'm not saying we did it right all the time. Kids aren't taught that in our schools now. They're taught to feel ashamed of this country. We got entertainers in this country that make a living off of putting this country down. I couldn't take it anymore. I said, I'm gonna make a living lifting up the greatest country that has ever existed on the face of the stinking earth. This country's better than the rest. That's America. Are you listening, Hollywood? That's America. God bless you. If I was in Berkeley, they would have all said, what happened? What was that all about? Like I said, folks, it's so easy to pick pot shots at women and their craziness, just like it's easy for women to pick pot shots at men and our silliness. Isn't that the thing, though, Wyatt, that what you don't grapple with, the thing that isn't your difficulty, that's not your problem, it's easy to pick it out in others, but it's also easy to think that they should get a handle on this. We never consider that maybe we are suffering from some problems or idiosyncrasies. Why is it, Wyatt, that, for example, I have always been basically the perfect father, whereas you have struggled to be the perfect son?
Well, simple, because you can't beat perfection. And any attempt to do so will inevitably fail.
You know, I got to tell you something. That's a beautiful spiritual example, because it's like being holy. You know how many sins you are allowed to commit and still remain holy?
0.
Right.
Well, technically, yeah, 0. You cannot commit any.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why God said, God realized right off the bat, he said, okay, should I give him 10 sins? Guys, what do you, 3? And he goes, oh, they got to be holy to be in my presence. All right, Zippo. Guess we're going to have to do all the work. And sure enough, here comes Jesus doing all the work for us. And I'm so grateful that he did. But you know what? Something that has happened to me, and I've been seeing a couple people now on the internet. I'm trying to get some to speak on Brad Stein Has Issues. I don't know if any of them will. But here's the problem. Trying to get them to come on. But it's something I never would have even anticipated. I would have joked about it. But I never would have taken it seriously. But it's this idea of how feminization has basically destroyed the West and is destroying the West, because women are now becoming so inculcated into culture. CEOs and running different things. And women shouldn't, because they can't get out of their emotions. They are emotionally driven. That's why they are woke. That's why you see white, liberal, leftist women being woke. They abandon marriage, they abandon children, but they are still maternal. They still desire children, but they got rid of them. So what happens? Does it just go away and they just drown themselves in Chardonnay? No, they go find a victim, a child like a minority or an illegal immigrant, and they nurture and protect them with their little wings. Now, this isn't being funny or hyperbolic. It's truly what they're doing. They're taking their motherly instincts and they're putting them someplace where it doesn't belong. And they vote this way, and they're destroying freedom. And once it's gone, once men, and men always control cultures because we are the more powerful, once men, the Marxist men, get control over us, if it happens, then they will shoot, kill, and destroy all the men who wouldn't put up that. Women will become servants, you'll be raped, you'll be pillaged, and there's nothing you can do about it, because the men that you needed, you got rid of, thinking you were strong, believing the hype that when Marvel Comics puts out a powerful woman that can beat up all the men, you take them seriously. No, they make movies about women superheroes because the only way there can ever be a woman superhero is in the movie. They're not stronger than men. They can't beat up men. Just go look at actual MMA. Women can be very powerful fighters. They can't beat a man, ever. Not a trained man. You can beat me up. You can beat a guy who doesn't know what he's doing. Absolutely. And I'm saying there's some good athletes, but you can't beat a guy. So anyways, it's caused us such distress. And I wanted to talk about that. Before we get a woman on that can really take us a deep dive into this thing, and I hope I can find a woman who's an expert on it. I wanted to show you a left-leaning woman's perspective on a particular subject, and that way I could comment on it. And because commentary videos are popular, and we can also clip them up and stick them out into the atmosphere, I thought I would put another one out, and hopefully we'll have one each week. Please comment, please like, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're trying to get 100,000 subscribers. We're not even halfway there. But in the meantime, enjoy this commentary with a crazy wokey lefty lady lunatic. Roll it, whitey boy. Well, as you know, today's episode of Breast Has Issues has Chonda Pierce, the most highest selling female comic of albums in history. Of all the comedians that have ever been female, she's sold more than anybody else. So, of course, we have to do a female episode on Breast Has Issues. And one of the things I wanted to discuss was this idea of the liberal, or probably better described, progressive, woke female. Why? They are so dangerous to freedom, and it's not hyperbole, nor is it in any ways being I don't know what you would say, bigoted or sexist. No, it's simply true. They've done surveys of liberal women. Would you prefer making people feel comfortable or liberty? And they prefer comfort, whereas men choose liberty, and men are more interested in facts and in accomplishing things than making people feel comfortable. This is the problem with women's makeup. Their nature is mothering. They have children and they nurture those children. Well, for the woke progressive woman who abandoned oftentimes childbearing or marriage, they never fulfilled that part of themselves. They can't escape it, so they project that onto illegal aliens. They project it onto transgender people that they need to protect and watch over. Unfortunately, that it comes at the expense of liberty, freedom, and the ability to disagree. So, you know, there's some folks out there I'm trying to get onto the program, Breast Has Issues, that are dealing with where feminism has really helped usher in the idea of wokeism, and the destruction is brought, especially in the institutions where women are becoming more powerful. They're causing more damage. They are not warriors. They do not know how to get outside of their heart and get into their head when necessary. So yes, in many ways, I'm finding the roles of women as they were created by God are causing some conflict with what is necessary when it comes to freedom that God gives us. And this is important because, as you know, Bronstein has issues. We talk about Christianity because it is true. No other religion is true. They are religious counterfeits to reality, the Messiah Christ, the only one that ever proved to be God. So I always have to say, how do we look at the world through the eyes of Christ? If you're a Christ follower, then the Holy Spirit gives you access and information as to how to see things accurately. So I wanted to show you, just to give you an example of what it looks like, a left-leaning, wokeism, progressivism female making some commentary that's so off-putting that it just shows you a delusion that has caused them to become what they are. So let's take a look and see if we can examine where they can't see outside of their heart and their emotions.
If BIPOC stand in the street and scream at the top of their lungs,
BIPOCs, that's people of color. And she just said, if they stand out in the streets and scream at the top of their lungs. Now, I want you to tell me what man would ever think that the most effective way to engage culture or try to get your ideas brought into the marketplace would say you do that by standing out in the street and screaming at the top of your lungs. That is such a female version of power. It's not, it's just screeching, but the Bible talks about that. If I speak with the tongue of men and of angels but have not love, I'm a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal. In other words, you're just noise. To yell, scream, and attack people is not an effective or kind or First Amendment way to communicate an idea that you might have. So right off the bat, we're dealing with somebody who believes an unhinged way of engaging culture is appropriate.
I hate all white people. I want all white people to go die. Die, white devil. You.
Okay, so I don't even have to listen to the rest of this. I hate all white people. I want white devils to die, die, die. That is so bigoted, so hateful, so wretched, so racist, so intolerant, so toxic. To choose white people, that's a melanin count. We all have melanin, just different shades of it. But if you have a less degree of melanin, so you're lighter shade, I can think that you should die, be killed, be destroyed, be mutilated. And it's good because I've decided that you, because of your skin color, are less human or subhuman. Obviously, the exact same thing that was done to black people. Now, if it was wrong to be done to those of high melanin count, certainly, if you have logic and reason, it would be inappropriate to do it to people of low melanin count, if you believed in logic and reason. Wokeism does not believe in logic and reason. It believes in feelings. Feelings are subjective, and they do not have power. They're simply yours, and that's the problem. You have to think like us, feel like us, and behave like us, and agree with us. We're going to strip you of your autonomy, your freedom, because it makes us feel good to stand on the street corner screeching, I want white people to die, and somehow say we're the good guys. Now, you can't be more deluded than that. It's why I know this is demonic, religious counterfeit to Christianity. It's evil and it's religious, and that's why you need to know that as a believer. So you understand that when you deal with the woke and the progressives, you're dealing with a secular, demonic religion. That's why they're so passionate about it, just like I'm passionate about my belief system about Christ.
Cracker bitch. That's still not racism.
That's still not racism. And yet you're categorizing white people as a race. So clearly, if you are putting down white people or dismissing them or harming them, then it can't be any other thing but racism. That's the term. When you redefine the term to make you look good, but if somebody was to say black is bad, black is evil, I want black dead, and you say, well, that's evil, then it has to be both ways. Or you don't believe in logic. And if you're dealing with somebody that doesn't believe in logic, there's nothing to discuss. You can't get to truth, and truth is all that matters.
That's discrimination. It's an action that's bred out of a prejudice, for sure. But screaming white people should die in my face doesn't change my socioeconomic status.
No, it doesn't. And screaming evil terms towards black people or Chinese people. Doesn't change them either. As a matter of fact, screaming words at somebody really shouldn't affect you at all. It's really all up to you. How am I going to be affected by somebody disagreeing with me or yelling at me? And really, the mature person would simply say, well, I mean, I hear where you're coming from, but it doesn't affect me because I don't base my life and my decisions on what you think about me.
It doesn't change the fact that the criminal justice system was built to serve me and people who look like me.
The criminal justice system was built to serve you and take care of you. You know that more white people unarmed have been killed by police than blacks. That's a statistic from the FBI. So when you don't even know the truth about reality, but only see emotional-driven CNN tactics of false equivalence or focusing on one particular incident and calling it racist, you will in fact guarantee create minions of the liberal woke woman perspective to fight your cause. They are tapping into their feminine maternal instinct to fight for these poor children. That's how they're viewing these people. They can't be saved without them. It can't be more demeaning than to try to defend the minority, the other, because they can't defend themselves. And you infantilize them. You turn them into children. So they never even see their own bigotry and racism because they believe they are white saviors.
It doesn't change the fact that my skin color won't get me brutalized by the police. It doesn't change the fact that...
What does that even mean? We've all seen videos of people being pulled over by police, and they refuse to cooperate. They scream, they yell, they attack. That's simply assault. It comes in all colors, and if you do that, you're a fool. You're going to go to jail. So to say that people are just randomly looking for black people to vote simply doesn't hold up factually. Remember, as a Christian, the truth must drive everything you believe about life. And that's what needs to be projected in a culture, because the truth is the only thing that can bring us back to true north. It's the only place that can bring us into continuity, because we have an actual transcendent idea, truth, that gives us reality. And we have to have that. And then we can all, no matter what socioeconomic or skin color we have, land in the same space. Because truth is the great, what would be the right word? Distillery of other ideas, subjectivity and ideas. It distills it into a potion that we all can drink from effectively and safely, because it's true, and truth works for all humans if you believe that truth is more important than your feelings. To the woke, it is not. Your feelings become and make and create truth. To the conservative, to the Christian, truth trumps all other ideas. And if that truth means that I have to disavow my perspective or to subject my bias to God's authority, then I've done the right thing. I've done the godly thing. I have honored God by honoring my desires and giving them to Him so that He can use them to help me get in balance. I'm a Christian. I'm the last truth teller on earth. I have to do that.
The entire country was built to cater to people who look like me. Screaming "I hate white people" at me doesn't change the fact that I am dripping with white privilege.
Doesn't even mean anything. Dripping with white privilege. Listen, let me explain something to you about this idea of white. White doesn't exist. It is a skin color. What we do know that does exist is Europeans, right? From this particular region of the world, particular people that looked a particular way. But the thing that is fascinating about this is if you talk to third world countries, they welcome what Europeans brought to them, because they brought to them incredible inventions and ways for them to eat and to have cheap fuel and to have computers and have all the things that came from the Middle Ages, from the European idea of God is real, thus he creates natural laws that we can tap into and create science as we know it. So yeah, that particular region of the world created amazing things and wonderful things and fascinating things that had never been done anywhere else. And by the way, I'm not taking credit for that. I happen to be European, I'm German, but I didn't invent that stuff. I'm not taking credit for it. It happened to come out of that area. And so we find ourselves apologizing for creating the cell phone this woman is using to make her TikTok video, the satellites that we created to allow her to put this online, the home that she has with central heating and air conditioning that were created with that sort of Western perspective and ability to do a scientific inquiries and scientific inventions. So it's really an absurd, self-deprecating perspective that makes her feel good about herself. Look, I am demeaning myself. Thus, aren't I a great person? So it's really an ego trip. It's systemic narcissism. It's worship of self by showing I'm so big as a white person that I can tell you how bad white people are. Well, if you're so bad as a white person, then anything you say shouldn't be listened to because remember, you're just corrupt. So everything you're saying should be ignored because it's coming from a white person. The inconsistency with any kind of logic is why I say, especially with women, you have to allow the Holy Spirit to convict you and to move you and to drive you outside of your heart. Maintain your heart. Hang on to your maternal instincts. It's beautiful. It's God-breathed. But if it doesn't allow you to get to the truth, then you have done a disservice to the body, and I hold you accountable for that. Just like you hold men and Christ followers accountable to being warriors, to being leaders, to defend and protect, and to drive the faith within their family and community. So we all have a role to play, and it's all equal. But keep in mind that the differences in the type of personalities and countenance we have as male and female has to be taken into account, especially when it comes to cultural issues and keeping freedom alive.
As long as I hold the power dynamic, I cannot be subject to racism. Hurt white feelings does not equal racism.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
If BIPOC stand in the street
And so, in conclusion, I want you to know how important it is as a Christ follower to be able to defend your faith. Your faith created the only faith that had ever created the fact that we are made in the image of God. Thus, we are all equal, and thus human rights are godly rights given to all man equally because he made all of us. So it's so crucial as a Christ follower to understand how to defend these ideas and to explain to people what it means. What is justice? Well, it comes from God and his nature. He is the one that makes, that gets to judge and determine who and how you will be brought into judgment eternally. It's God and God alone that gets to decide who will represent his words by the anointing of the Holy Spirit. And you need to go forth and make sure you're doing just that. God Almighty, teach me. Holy Spirit, guide me, speak through me, that I might protect and defend the truth and the reality that created true egalitarianism, which is Western values. Now, obviously, there's been evil that has been done. White people certainly had some black slaves, but then again, white people ended slavery. Now, you know that in Black Africa, they still have slaves today. So the idea of saying white people are the bad guys is so evil, so racist, so destructive. And to say I am never, ever responsible for my bigotry as a person of color can't be more disconnected from Christ, who says everybody must be able to admit their sins, repent, and treat each one equality. Christianity is the only belief system, because it's the only truth on earth, that teaches us how to do just that. You do not define yourself as black and white or Hispanic or Chinese. There is no Jew or Gentile, no bond or free, no male or female. We define ourselves as equal children of the living God. You must understand how to fight these ideas and defend these ideas if you are going to be effective in the culture and in the body of Christ. So, this is God's Comic Brad Stein with my latest perspective in how to think Christian, to have the militia of the mind. Go forth and join the militia of the mind right now. Get me your email and fight the good fight of faith. Thanks. And so there we sit, trying to figure out where is this nation going to go? How easily are people in the United States going to be deceived or bought off or think that this country can survive and the freedoms can survive if people don't care about them? You know, women care more about people's feelings, not women, my mistake. Left-leaning women care more about people feeling good about themselves than they do about free speech. It is as dangerous as it can be, and that's why they shouldn't be able to vote. If that's how you see the world, that you want to sacrifice freedom and free speech so that people feel good, then you are absurd, because not only do I go and my family goes, but then you are going to be completely become a slave, and you don't know it because you're too stupid to get outside of your girl heart, which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful God-given thing, and it's necessary, but it's being manipulated to these women to make them become self-created slaves, and they don't know it. It's a cult. Remember, when you abandon God, you don't believe in nothing, you believe in anything. So leftism is a cult. It is a religious belief. It's why they are so adamant. I've said this a million times, but it's true, and it bears repeating. So that is why this is so important, that we understand as Christians, what does it mean to be a believer? How to see men and women in their proper roles, and they have them. If you are a woman right now listening to this on Life Audio or watching this show, and I have wonderful women fans who've watched for years, and I love you guys, and I do not, and make this very clear, I am not better than you, I'm not superior to you, no man is superior to a woman intrinsically. We are equal as God made us, but we have different powers and strengths and created expectations for how we create culture and what we are to do in that. And men are more analytical. That's why more men become mathematical and engineers and professors and scientists. Not because women aren't smart, but because it's men are interested in things and women are interested in people. Now, obviously, there are women that have become amazing scientists and amazing engineers. They can do it, but it's rare. Just like there's men that can become amazing seamstresses. Wyatt, for example, is an amazing seamstress. He is always making himself gowns. He's making himself little socks that he darns. Why? Tell us about I know you wanted to get into male fashion. Explain.
No, you get it wrong. I knit little sweaters and coats for the snails that are my mascots for my tattoo business.
So once you sucked all the ink out of them, they start shivering, and so it gives them a way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's like the blood or something. They need it, or else they get shivery.
I got you. Okay, well, that's good. Well, it's so good for you, though.
Plus, it's great promotional stuff for social media.
Amen. What do you call your place?
Ooh, Snail Ooze Ink.
Snail Ooze Ink.
Which, it's ink like incorporated.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Though you could have it ink and then have C and then have a slash and then put K.
Yeah. Sure, we'll get back to you.
Well, we can sell shirts, White, and keep this podcast rolling.
Absolutely.
Why do snails have ink?
I don't think they do.
Dang it. Do you know how problematic that is with this whole routine now?
They have mucus.
Should we have said octopus?
I think isn't it squid that?
And Wyatt, will you please help me get this straight so I don't look stupid? You can fix this in post, right? None of this will come up.
Oh yeah, none of this will be coming up.
Nice. Well, that was spooky, but nevertheless, here we sit. Wyatt, I want to tell you something. I am so excited about this next guest. She's somebody I knew when I first moved to Nashville, Tennessee, when you were just a little 6-year-old boy and your sissy was 2. And we moved here, and Chonda Pierce and I had the same manager, Mike Smith, the late Mike Smith, a wonderful man. And so I got to know her. She started a Christian Comedians Association, and I went to the first version of that. And just, I've just gone to some Christmas parties over the years, and just a sweet gal, a funny comic. And like I said, you're going to hear more about her life, what she's gone through. And she's very unique. She's very talented. She's a singer. She's a pianist. She is a comic, but she also talks a lot about mental health. She talks a lot about the loss of her husband, about difficulty in the relationship, about some losses she's had in her family. So she's had a tough life, and she's very open and very transparent about that. And so as a Christ follower, it's beautiful because it gives a way for people to see that all of us struggle. And even those who maybe you look at and think, well, they don't have any problems because look, they're up on stage and they seem like life is easy for them. Well, they do. And so to be transparent shows you you're not alone, just like the Bible says that everybody's screwed up, including the ones that we want to emulate, except for Jesus. And he's unemulatable. We're supposed to shoot for, but he's the only one that wasn't screwed up. But nevertheless, he's the only one we can't actually become like. But I can certainly be like Paul or David, right? But that being said, I really think that she's helpful to people and has helped people in many, many ways. And I just wanted to get her on. I used to avoid comics for most of the beginning few years of Breast Has Issues. I didn't bring them on just because I felt like that's the obvious go-to. If you're a comic, you bring on comics. And then I stopped, and I just mainly had other eclectic guests. But the more I realized that they are fun and they are important and they are part of my life, and so I want to bring them on. And so I have, just like I've brought on magicians because I was one of those once. So and I brought on a sideshow performer because I was one of those. Well, I can do some sideshow tricks. Actually, I was a sideshow performer once, and it's very fun, but that's another story for another time. Meanwhile, you're here. You want to know what I have to say, or at least what Chonda does, and so I don't blame you. And that's why we're not going to waste any more time. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment, folks, and go become a follower on my Facebook page. Please, on my Instagram, I'm trying to grow so we can make this even more unique of a show and grow and help people become Christ followers, more importantly, and even deeper, beyond Christ follower, which is crucial. That's the beginning. Become a disciple. That's what my comedy does when I go into churches, and that's what I'm trying to do on Breadsign Has Issues. So, with that all being said and done, please sit back, relax, and enjoy with a brand new sweater knitted by my son Wyatt this interview with God's Comic Brad Stein and my old friend Chonda Pierce.
Okay. Well, folks, I am very, very excited to bring on this next guest. And I have to say that actually it's in my contract and she insisted. But the truth is, this is not only an old friend, but one of the oldest Nashville friends I have. Met her very many years ago when I first moved to this town. And we had some things in common, which we'll be talking about. We're comics. We had the same manager for a while. So we had some interesting things in common, but we've also shared some hard things together. And so that's kind of what friendship is. It's kind of what life is. It's not always the way we plan it, but it's the way it pans out. And so as Christ followers, we're along for the ride is how it seems to pan out. So that being said, she's not just a female comic, and we shouldn't have to differentiate, but we kind of do. But she's a very successful one. Matter of fact, maybe you could say the most successful, sold more albums than any other female comedian in the history of the world, which means she's the funniest girl comic that has ever existed on the face of the earth. Please bring on my friend, Chonda Pierce. How are you?
Goes wild.
Yeah. How are you?
I love it.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing really, really good. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you face to face in quite some time, but it's good to be seen, and it is good to see you. I take the winters off, and I really do kind of hide away. I just really do. Part of that's probably not good, but when I get back out on the road, I'm very grateful I had the downtime.
Well, I got to say something.
There we go.
You've always been an interesting phenomenon to me. You're a bit of a dichotomy. One of the things I love about you is you're very vulnerable. You're very open about the life you've lived and the challenges as well as the great things. I'm not saying it's all bad, but as a comic who maybe oftentimes they want to hide the tears of the clown kind of not you, not you. It's like, give me a megaphone. Let me show you what's going sideways this time. So talk to me a little bit about just whatever prompted you to kind of be so, I don't know, vulnerable for folks as a comic who could have just played the game of look how fun my life is, look how I've nailed it. And I think you've been so helpful in healing. You've been so helpful in healing people by saying, look, this ain't that easy, but here's what I've learned. So talk to me about just what allowed you the courage to be so fragile, I think, at so many times in your life.
Yeah, and I hope my dog barking didn't show up too badly on there if you heard him barking in the background.
At least he didn't Aramaic, so that's what I appreciate.
Yeah, they're very spiritual dogs.
Yeah.
They it's a funny thing. It's really sweet that you say that because I used to feel I used to carry a little bit of a shame or an aggravation about myself because I didn't think I was as funny as powerful as my testimony was. And it bothered me. I thought one outweighed the other tremendously. Of course, now the salvation plan outweighs everything in your life. The redemption outweighs everything in your life. But as a performer, I just thought, the only reason people are really coming to see me is because I have this story at the end. And a lot of that is because Mark Lowry used to tease me in that way sometimes. But it was as time went on, and I've been at this for 35 years, as time went on, people really were coming because I was funny. And that kind of gave me a little shot in the arm and made me feel good about my craft and feel good about my work because I didn't feel like I measured up to a lot of comedians who worked so hard at it. And there are a lot of people Brad, you have a very natural gift. Now, yes, you sit down and write, and we all do. We get an idea and it percolates in our heads for a little bit, but it's been years and years since I actually sat down and tried to write comedy. I'll get a line here or there, and I work so often now that I can get a line in my head during the day, and I just try it out that night, because to see what happens, and then I make fun if it doesn't work or it molds. It grows like penicillin. It'll mold like molded bread. It'll mold into something else. But so the comedy aspect of my life was very important to me, and I wanted so badly to do it well. And I had high hopes and aspirations along those lines. And so, but the truth of the matter is I backed into the comedy world because I wanted to share my story. And comedy is very vulnerable anyway. It is the only, I think, craft I feel like that you get instant gratification or instant rejection. I mean, immediately if you did well. It's not like waiting for a song to come out on the radio and see if anybody downloads it. It's not like if a song, if you hit a bad note, you've got 8 more other notes in that song to make up for it. But a joke, immediately if you did well or you didn't. And so it's one of the most vulnerable crafts in the world. So I think maybe that aspect prepared me to be open and being willing to be vulnerable with your story. And then just the fact that I really and truly fell in love with Jesus Christ in such a way that I wanted people to see what my life was before Christ and what it was like after Christ. And the only way to do that is to craft the story of your life in a way so people see the before and the after. But now, some of my sinful past, I haven't really dived into it much because it's nobody's business. Until my kids are gone, I don't want them to know. Yeah.
Well, but okay, so I gotta say, I've known you a long time. That's a little interesting take when you talk about. So when you say sinful past, because from my understanding, you grew up in the church, right? I guess
Yes.
assumed you were a believer for your whole life. Now that doesn't mean you were a deep believer. Doesn't mean that you were
Right.
a meat eating believer. Maybe you were milk drinking.
Right.
Maybe you were superficial. Maybe you were playing a game. Maybe you were being Christianese,
Right.
churchianity, and all that. I understand that too, but are you saying that you weren't even truly born again? So if we're going to use our terminology, or do you just feel like you didn't really understand what was asked of you until later in your life when suddenly you said, you know what, this is in fact going to be the rest of my life, and I'm serious.
I think, and yeah, for me in my house, and our theologies may be different. I hope you're right. I hope I've been born again the whole time. I remember wanting to give my life to Jesus when I was like 4 or 5, but then I always make a joke and then I did it again when I was 7, and about 2 times in high school, and about 4 times in college. And so I grew up in a theology where you could lose it,
Yeah.
and I feel like I lost it a lot.
Okay.
It's interesting because I read this great article even today about some of our fallen Christian artists that you hear about all the time. And it breaks your heart when you hear about it. What really breaks your heart is that their influence it scars their influence, and it scars other people's hearts when they fell in love with Jesus through these people. And so that mixed in with this thought theologically, I just know that there are times when I was so on fire for the Lord and my life was all about that. And then there are times when my life was a little bit about me, or a whole lot about me and my own desires, or my own flesh, or my, or wanting to be sinful, or wanting to be crazy. And so, yeah, I have those stories, trying alcohol to the nth degree, trying, I never inhaled. And then, I tried smoking pot once, I don't even know if I did it right. I just coughed a lot, So it's those kinds of things. I have those things in my past, like everybody else. I had a marriage that was troublesome for many years, and so that leads to sadness on both sides, and then mistakes on both sides. And so, all that being said, I have that in my story.
Yeah.
I don't like to talk about it or dwell on it, especially on a stage. No one wants to glorify sin.
Yeah.
I just think that's wrong, because I can remember people getting up and testifying. I used to have wild women and go drinking every Friday night, and then I found Jesus, and it always looked like they were a little disappointed. It's like, yeah. I don't like those kind of stories where you're all keyed up about what you used to get to do. But I hate that my number one issue with it is I hate that I disappointed God. That there are times when I know that he shook his head, not that he didn't love me, but I know that he shook his head going, I wish she wouldn't take that route. He knows it's going to lead to pain. And I think he hates to see us go down those streets, those side streets. And so, so I have those stories, but the bottom line is the reason getting into this, of course, coming into comedy was such a backdoor issue for me. I got a job at a theme park that we used to have here in Nashville called Opryland. And since I didn't know how to dance and I didn't grow up dancing, or any of that, and I thought it would send you to hell, they gave me the part of impersonating Minnie Pearl, who I didn't know anything about. I wasn't allowed to watch Hee Haw growing up, and so I had to get to know her as an artist, and I got to know her personally as a woman, and it inspired me. I loved hearing the funny. I thought some of her stories were a little hokey, because I was a young 21-year-old, 22-year-old girl, but at the same time, I admired that she had a way of taking the right words, putting them in the right order, and a room of people would laugh. And I started toying with that a little bit in my job at Upperland. I would tell little stories from my childhood, or I would remember an old joke, an evangelist said at church, and I would try them out. And my boss would go, "That was really funny, but it didn't happen. It's grinder switch. You can't do that." And then came that intersection of getting serious once again with my life with Christ. And I wanted to tell what the Lord had done for me. And I thought, what a great idea. I should tell funny stories like Miss Minnie does. That'll warm the crowd up a little bit so that you could tell them about tragedy or mental illness, or you could tell them about depression. And so that was the whole reason of getting into comedy, was to earn the right to be heard about something serious. And that formula exploded for me. And I feel very, very blessed. I feel very affirmed. And I heard a voice that says, "Let's try this, let's go do this." And I heard correctly, because the fruits of the labor is what I see. And that's a great reward in my life. I don't have there are a lot of things I've lost in my life, a whole lot. And some days you have that back and forth of going, was it really worth it? Was it worth being away from home that much? Was it really worth it? And you have those depressed moments of going, I don't think it was. But then you'll get a letter, from someone, or we're blessed that we can get such instant gratification. You get an email or a note, or I can pay a mortgage, and you realize, okay, I'm doing something right. But you can't, I don't think you can judge your success in dollars. That's a dangerous territory. You really want to, because you look around, and I maybe have an award from the RIAA as the most awarded female comic in history. That's my thing. I have more platinum and gold and all that. But I don't have the dollars that, Chelsea Handler has, and it didn't equate in the dollars that Ellen DeGeneres got, Our market was just so totally different. But I am blessed that I'm not poor, you know what I mean? I'm not at all wealthy. But for what I grew up in, I'm rich.
Yeah. Well, wow,
Yeah.
so many pieces of that story to unpeel here, because I guess I didn't know that you weren't as interested in comedy initially as you were testimony, telling a story. So are you saying you were kind of always felt ministry driven? Like, I got a bigger reason to exist, and it's to
Yes.
people to Christ. So you really saw yourself as more of a ministering to people's lives as a, I don't even know what you would have called yourself as a.
I don't either. Yeah. Like a speaker or a humorist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Patsy Claremont once, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to be that. And then I saw Barbara Johnson, and she used such humor to unfold her story, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. But then I would run it, get to run in comedy circles, and Wanda Sykes was so hilariously funny, talking about middle age and menopause and Spanx, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. But when I look back, and I tried, and I say this for my manager now, I've had the same manager now for over 20 years, Andrew Tenenbaum, and he managed Billy Crystal and Robin Williams and some of the biggest names out there as well. And for his sake, at this twilight of my career, I'm so sad, disappointed that he didn't turn me into a big superstar like he wanted. You know what I mean? I think he thought I had the ability to be the next Roseanne Barr when we first met. I had the ability to be, Ellen DeGeneres. I had those abilities. And try as I might, Brad, and you and I talked about this years ago when I wanted to try it. When I would ask you, what is the club scene like? I want to try to do that. And I would do it maybe once. I can count on two hands how many times I ever walked into a comedy club. And 3 of those times I bought tickets. So,
Yeah.
So all that to say is, every time I would, and I'd get a laugh or two or whatever, I never, ever felt fulfilled. Never. And I would almost get angry at the Lord over that. I would get frustrated, because I would see how the skyrocket goes for those who are from the club world. And they found Bob Saget, and he's one of the dirtiest comics in the world, but they cleaned him up to put him on Full House. And my manager, when I first met him, he said, look, we had to get Bob Saget cleaned up so he could, be on television. You're already cleaned up, so this is going to be easy. And then he discovered that it was not easy at all, because there was already so much information out there about my faith, my politics, and my conservative life, that he try as he might, and he is a man very well connected, the door would never really open wide. And I used to lament that so much, but at the age of 65 years of age, and you see how some of these other comics' lives unfolded that you thought back then were so successful, and they look miserable. And they're broken families, and they're brokenhearted, or they're drug driven or alcohol dependent. And I look back now and say, oh, what I thought was great rejection from the world was God's ultimate protection of me, because I already had a troubled road. And so complicate my already troubled world with depression and my husband's alcoholism and the grief. I have had every kind of grief there is, except no one murdered in my life, but I've had every kind of death in my life. And the complication that grief continues to bring to your life at different times, if I had gone that worldly route, for the lack of a better word, it would have destroyed me.
Well,
I have no doubt.
Well, and it's an interesting thing. How do I phrase this? Because I know you. And listen, we're comics, we're friends, we're open books. I think part of the beautiful thing about comics, honestly, is we're brave.
Yes, that's my favorite quote. Lucille Ball, my favorite quote of Lucille Ball says, I am not funny, but what I am is brave.
Yeah, and we are, and we're willing to kind of drop our drawers in front of a crowd and say we don't care. We're able to do.
Well, you do. I try to keep my drawers on.
That's true. Or your Spanx, keep them on.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm getting at is we were always kind of the silly ones that just didn't care what people thought. And that is such an anomaly to a typical human.
Yes.
Biggest fear is to be not liked or to be mocked or ridiculed or not fit in. Number one fear. And we kind of say, yeah, well, guess what? I'm choosing to risk that option. And that's a very rare gift or a psychiatric condition. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But
you know what, Brad? I say hats off to you. I say hats off to you because I learned that from you early on, watching you and dissecting what you do and everything. That is a gift. I don't know, and I'm sure you know this. That ability to not care. Let me say it this way. I have a friend who has this podcast, and she's not a clean comedian. I'm trying to be a good influence in her life. She smokes like a freight train, and that's her whole gimmick, is going out on the porch and having a cigarette. And she's funny, and and I love her to death. And she's always like, I want to come open for you. And I go, it's not quite that easy. Who they see on the screens has to be who they see in person. That's a little difference in Christian comedy, or if you say you're a Christian comedian or a clean comedian, you can host a clean night, but a Christian comedian cannot host a dirty night.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so we have to be a little more careful. But all that to say, I wanted to email her the other day. I was listening to her podcast, and bless her heart, I want to reach out and hug her and go, stop spending so much time on what the negative things people say. Be strong in who you are. And maybe she needs a little more peace in the Lord. I don't know, or a little more joy of the Lord. But you were always so bold. And I cherish that. I thought someday I'm going to grow up and be as bold as Brad Stein. You were so bold, and you didn't give a flip. Now that doesn't mean you're not a compassionate person. I adore your heart. You don't let people see it enough, but you have an incredible heart, and it's tender and it's wonderful, but you're a man. Men don't do that. But what I used to say is your boldness was so contagious. And I think in the last probably 8-9 years of my life, I've gotten a little bolder. My material's probably a little edgy. Some of our comic friends will say I get by with more than most. And it's probably because I have been at this for so long. I am trusted that I'm going to come around and redeem the night, I promise, or I'll let the Lord come around and redeem the night, So I get a little edgy, talk about not knowing anything about sex and talking about sex, and I get a couple of ugly letters every now and then. But when I know that I know that I know in my heart is right with the Lord, those letters do not bother me a bit. Once in a while, I've gotten a note, and I know I probably wasn't in a good place when I delivered that. So I could have toned it down a little bit, or I was a little bitter. I don't know about you, but I have stories and material I've dropped from my repertoire because peace came along, and I didn't need the jab anymore. I didn't need to stick it to the man anymore. I didn't need to, hopefully that lady's going to hear this and she's going to see how ridiculous she was when she said that. I drop a lot of that stuff because peace comes and I don't need it. Yeah.
Well, you know what, though? Christian comics, and I hate to label, but it's how we're labeled. So, well.
It is, yeah.
But
it is what it is.
It is what it is. And, that was a lesson that I learned, Sean. And by the way, thank you for the compliment. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I learned something, though. When they started calling me a Christian comic, I'm like, well, I'm a comic that happens to be a Christian. I was trying to reposition it so that I could control the narrative. Well, you don't get to do that. They're going to call you what they want. They're going to put you into the category they feel comfortable with so they can control you. But God showed me something, Sean. He said, listen, they're going to call you Christian comedian. So instead of avoiding it, here's what I say. Say, yeah, I'm a Christian comedian. And where do you get a load of this? So he said, redefine it. Okay.
Wow.
Instead of them saying Christian comedian means hokey, churchy, Baptist flannel graph, vibe to it. No, what if you showed them another way to taste that style of comedy, so they go, what? Okay, I never saw it in this package before. So I think that was one of the things that God was helping me be comfortable with is, I have a mission for you, son. Here's why. Yeah, and he told me, he said, I remember when I was called to the church and felt like this is really where I need to focus. That this is my calling, my ministry, which I didn't get in comedy to be in ministry. But God said, I didn't ask you where to go. I asked you, will you go? You said, yes, let's get up and move. But the thing that's interesting, Chonda, is I kind of said to God, well, look, I'll go where you send me. You're my savior. You're my father. But I don't want to dumb it down. Father, I don't want to dumb it down. I want sophisticated comedy for my people so they can be not only enjoy, I hope, higher brow comedy with some kind of depth to it, but also not to be embarrassed to bring a non-believer to see it like, oh, you guys are funny too. I just want to represent.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was important to me.
Yes.
And God said to me,
I totally saw that. Yeah.
When God said, why do you think I trained you in nightclubs? That's the way he saw it. He said, look, in the future, in America, things are going to change. And I need you to help renew the minds of my people as to how to see what kind of packages we come in. Because things are going to change. Wow. And you need to help them understand. Well, comedy has this amazing freedom and responsibility and historical ability to do what no other art form has, and that is make fun of the king and not get your head cut off. We got that special place to make the monarchy and the peasantry inequality. Nobody else got that. It was like we're the safety valve to the pressure in a culture. You guys get to say the stuff that nobody else gets to. We're giving it to you. It's under a very specific umbrella. Right. You're a comic, so we know what you're doing. We know you don't really mean that because you're playing a role, but somebody has to be able to say the unsayable so that others can be bold enough to do that. So that kind of is how I ended up doing that. But you know what, Chonda? I never tried to be bold just to see if I could push the envelope or see what I could get away with. To me, it was like the problem that I saw in Christian audiences that I didn't see in mainstream clubs, which I appreciated more about clubs, was to the mainstream secular group. They are only there to laugh. If you're laughing, they don't care what you're doing. They don't care what you say. They don't care. If you're funny, that's what I came. That doesn't mean that maybe you're not their cup of tea, but for the most part, if you're funny, that's what they came for. And what I learned early on is Christians that come to Christian type entertainment have a very myopic view of what this is allowed to look like. Here's especially you see in faith films. You got to say Jesus 7 times. The field goal has to get in. The cancer has to go away. The guy has to be raised from the dead. Nobody ever gets to grieve. Nobody else to see. It doesn't resolve. But that's a story too. That's a story too that God wants to tell. Read the Psalms. They're heartaches. They're heartaches. And God said, that's a story you need to hear too. But what I saw was that Christians were trained to judge content instead of context. And to me, the sophistication is not what I said. What was the heart? What did I mean? Is there something deeper here for you to get some revelation, some insight, some inspiration? If comedy is done smart, it can do that. It can change the way you think, and it can help you see things in a way that you don't know how to do it. And so and I'm sure you've seen this because I've seen your act evolve, and I have seen you get bolder and a little bit more, but it always has, a moment to retrieve and say, but guys, I'm loving you, and I'm really mean well, and what I'm really getting at is. And they're like, oh, I'm safe. I'm safe with her. I'm safe with her. She's honest, but she's also one of us, so I can trust her. And that's a hard tightrope for us to learn. What can we get away with without trying to be trite or insensitive? But what can we get away with that's important?
And what can we get away with that doesn't look like we're trying to get away with something?
Right.
That the bottom line. I will say I have probably in the last 10 years, maybe less than that even, I've probably gotten a little more deliberate about the church. And part of it is I've been trying to retire for 5 years. Nobody quite listening. And I've gotten to where now I just walk out to the crowd I go, please stop buying tickets. I should be home with my feet up. I'm old, it's those kinds of things. But I love what I do and I love my crowd. And I will keep doing it a little bit longer. I'm trying to be wiser at how often I go out just because I am old. It's usually by the end of the night, my back's killing me. My feet hurt. I'm just an old woman. All that to say, I have been at a place where I feel like in these last twilight years of not just my career, but I think Jesus is on his way. I've probably been more deliberate and a little hard on the church, like you and like most of us that have developed material that tells the difference of different denominations and different faiths and what this preacher on television recently said and what that preacher on television. I've been pushing back on those things, which is probably why some of those big giant churches that used to have me don't have me as much anymore. But it's because I got tired of and I will admit, for the first few years of my career, I was tiptoeing around things, hoping that this was okay to do. You know what I mean? I didn't want to go to hell. And a lot of that was the theology I grew up in. There were so many rules and regulations, and you can break them without even knowing it. You could sin in your sleep and lose your salvation. I mean, that's how it was presented or how I felt it was in my head. And so I would almost apologize. I'm going to tell you something really funny, but I apologize, but I'm going to tell you this. And that was stupid. You know what I mean? It made my comedy hardly believable because you're unsure of yourself.
Yeah.
But as years went by and my walk with the Lord got strengthened and my theology began to tweak and turn, that in turn helped my comedy be bolder and stronger and confident.
Yeah.
And you know, and then that made that the Lord made me better. You know what I mean? That my relationship with the Lord made me better. And then I just got serious about the craft and really started watching how other people do it and what they do. And, you know, I mean, I got so thrusted into this. It was 5 years in that I'm trying to decide, am I supposed to hold the microphone or stand there? Or can I sit on a stool? I mean, I was so dissecting
but you definitely ended up in a very difficult performance art without kind of an intent. So you kind of had to learn on the go, like you know, on the fly, the game. Like
yeah.
When I learned in comedy clubs, you know, at least you get a good foundation, because if you're not funny, you don't work. So you have no option but to figure this out. And so when I came into the churches, well, I didn't have to do a lot of adjustments. I was already a Christian, so I didn't have to worry about language, didn't have to worry about topics. I knew what my people like and what they don't. And I knew what I felt like I wanted them to experience. Well, but I had a foundation in a place where I could have said in any language I want, anything I want, and they would have been happy as long as I was funny. So it is harder, I think, in a way, Chonda, for you, because you didn't grow up in the clubs where you got to see a lot of comedy, so you could kind of learn and grow. And you kind of got thrust in. You pulled it off, so God bless you. But in a way, it was a disservice because you didn't get some of the road work training that maybe would have helped you be prepared for some of the things that you literally had to learn while you were already selling tickets to your show. You know, so that and you know it's okay. You don't have to apologize for being successful. But here's the interesting thing about you that I know. You are well, I mean, you've sold, I guess, I don't know how it works, if it's sold more gold or platinums or just the amount of albums, or I don't even know how they gauge it on the RIAA, but more than anybody else, right? Okay, so you have sold more albums, I just use old school, than any other female comic in the world, ever.
Right.
Okay, that is nothing to sneeze at. That's not something you can fake. That's not something that you can stumble into. God gave you a very specifically unique, incredibly one of a kind reality about your life and your career. And yet, and maybe it's changed. I haven't talked to you for a while. And I don't mean this in any way other than the vulnerability of what people can learn from listening and watching this. You were always, to me, one of the most insecure people I'd ever met.
Yeah. Oh, and absolutely.
Always.
I think it stems all the way from.
Well, I always felt like you second-guessed yourself. I always felt like you, and please, we're friends. I hope this doesn't sound in any way demeaning, because I mean it in a beautiful way.
No.
Okay, in that I always felt like you all were always wondering if you really belonged. And I just and I find that interesting because pragmatically, you outsold everybody. I mean, belonged. They're all trying to catch up to you. So tell people about this, Sean, because I know that's part of the power of your show, is you saying, here's the hard parts of me. Here's the broken parts of me. Here's the fragile parts of me that I'm trying to keep together while you guys are laughing. So tell me about where in the world, unless I misunderstood or misinterpreted.
No, you're always.
Where did this
right on.
This self-deprecation, this sense of unworthiness, where the heck did that come from, and have you overcome it yet?
I think I've gotten better about it, but I'm still. I think a lot of it. One, that does happen. That does happen often for women who have gone through some type of abuse. you always feel like, not always, but without therapy, of course, you will constantly feel like you either brought it on yourself or you did something wrong that caused that person to hurt you. And so that overcoming that with wonderful counseling and help, that helped a lot. But secondly, and I don't want to pick on my past denomination or anything, but a lot of it came theologically.
Yeah.
When you are taught that Jesus loves you, this I know, for the Bible tells you so. However, you could mess it up. There is a nothing affects you more than what's happening to you spiritually. What's going on with you spiritually will activate in every aspect of your life, either greatly or badly. It will either be if you have the wrong theology, or you know that you're doing wrong and you know that you're in sin, whether you think you can hide it or not, it affects you and it affects your life around you. I grew up seeing, try to say it nicely. I grew up seeing, like many people, I grew up seeing how easy it is to fool your audience. I grew up knowing that there were pastors up to no good, but yet people came to the altar that night when they preached. I grew up seeing that. So it wasn't always pulling the wool over the eyes of my audience as my peers around me. I felt like I still measure up to some of these pros out there, and I feel really guilty for taking the ticket away from, this newcomer over here that fought their way through the clubs and, doing all the right things and writing comedy every day. And I just outsold her crowd. You know what I mean? And I used to feel a little guilty about that. But a lot of that guilt came because I never really was sure that I was going to make it to heaven. And that's a horrible way to live. I tell a joke now, which I'm trying, it's not really funny, but I'm trying to make a point, that my mother truly, truly believed that you could be Ruth Graham and Mother Teresa all wrapped up in one woman and to be the best woman on the planet. But if you tripped on your way to your own coffin and blurted out a cuss word, you'd go straight to hell.
Wow.
And I grew up feeling that theology. Whether that's what they meant, it very much is a theology that believes you can become a Christian and ask Jesus into your heart, but you can blow it in such a way that you'll go to hell. I even read a book one time about the levels of heaven, and I thought, I could buy into that. You know what I mean? I just want to get there. I don't think I'll be able, I tell a whole joke now about who lives on the street with Jesus in heaven, because, we all know who's not going to live there, but what's it look like? Who's going to live on the street with Jesus? And my joke is always my grandmother won't, because no one is going to want to live on the street with my grandmother. She was the meanest Christian I ever knew. And so part of that is so based on, an aunt who really was the meanest Christian I ever knew, but she was alive for so long, I switched it to grandma because she was dead. But that's the theology I grew up in, that I have been on the bus even in the last 5-6 years. And we're talking theology, or we're having a little Bible study moment with the girls. And, I try to travel with all women, and it's a wonderful night. And before we go to bed, I always go, y'all see how I live and everything. You think, are you sure I'm in? You think I'm in? Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
To be loving God for as long as I can remember, I have loved God. As long as I can remember. But I still struggle once in a while that, I think he loves me back, but he might be a little disappointed in me, or I think he loves me back, but I had 3 glasses of wine the other night. So, he hates me now. It's horrible. It's horrible to grow up like that. Yet I can see someone like, I don't know, Justin Bieber comes to know Jesus, and he really is changing his life a little bit, and you can see the difference, that Jesus is making, and my grandmother would say not quite fast enough, but you can see, the difference Jesus is making in his life, and I am convinced that young man is going to be in heaven. But for me, to believe it about me It's taken a village to get this brain
Yeah, but you know
straightened
what?
out.
But this is very consistent, though, with
Yes.
with your self-esteem issues. And here's what I mean by that: what
Good.
what you're battling every time this happens. And by the way, I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people, Christians, sometimes struggle with their.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. So,
I think probably the number one thing for most comics I know is a lack of confidence and love of self.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's true. Yes, well, I said earlier where people are so fearful to speak in front of an audience, and we put ourselves in that position of being so vulnerable to be hated and despised and laughed at and whatever, and we do it anyways. It's like we are just so desperate.
Yeah.
So desperate to create a persona we can reside in that feels safe and strong. So we create it. We create the facade. We put on the mask, the boldness. Not that that isn't true to a degree, but I also think it can be a manipulation of us trying to convince ourselves how to survive. And here's how we're doing it.
Wow.
We're going
very smart. Yeah, that's very interesting.
And we'll,
and our industry teaches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our industry itself, not our comedy industry, but the Christian music industry is where we're stuck into or whatever. We have always been the stepchild of the church, and of our industry.
Yes.
Even secular comic, Billy Crystal, Robin Williams, and now Robin Williams was an exception because he did get accolades for the serious sides of him. But think of the comics who have had really serious roles, but they never could get out of cut. Jim Carrey, who I think is so brilliantly funny. Now I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but then when he does something serious, it is so good. But they never see him outside of this box of comedy, and comedy is always considered the stepchild. It's because those who are do it well, if we do it so well that it looks like it's so natural that anybody could do it, we're almost penalized for that.
That's right.
Because we're almost penalized for that. And so I think, so those who have struggled with esteem problems, what a horrible place that I got stuck into, because that didn't help at all. I should have more, TED Talks or something with Brene Brown or somebody and do some big TED Talk thing. So I'll look like a serious person. And I think that's why I love acting and the movies that I've gotten to be in, especially the ones that I get to be a character or somebody else other than me. I love those things. But I think you're right. I think, and I preach this all the time, Brad. I love that you bring it up. It's the truth of the matter is when everything is really great with the Lord, it answers a lot of the questions in our brokenness.
Yes.
But while we're on this planet, until Jesus comes, there are going to be some things that I think, like Paul, maybe is the thorn in our side, the thorn in the flesh. And I look at the thorns that I have still had to love God, even when I carry this thorn in my flesh. I have learned to become grateful in that it keeps me from being too haughty. It keeps me from getting a big head. It gives me a drive to keep trying to do something better. The next show be better, So it's, Paul said the same thing. People always wondered, what was it that Paul said? Why do I have this thorn in my flesh, but it's that very thing is what's kept me close to the Lord. And, preachers break it down and say, it was a nagging wife, or many think it was depression. I don't think that. And I am, I'm crazy about Paul.
Yeah.
And I got to walk his steps last year with Governor Huckabee. But all that to say, what I think it was that Paul carried was shame. And it is the hardest thing to overcome. I carry the shame, because I felt like I wasn't a good enough wife. And now my husband's dead and I can't say I'm sorry to him enough. I would carry shame because of my sin, because I was taught that, you can come to a line where God will not take you back, and that was, that's part of the shame that I carry. I carry shame because of sexual abuse, of feeling like I'm damaged goods, so it keeps me not being intimate well, or for a while it kept me being too intimate too quickly because, you're always trying to cover up or have that little contest in your life. Are you good enough? But I think when I look at Paul's life, to think of a man who murdered Christians and now he is trying to be one of the best Christians and lead people to Christ, he still had that nag in the back of his head of, do you remember what I did? Yeah. I know God remembers what I did. It is hard to believe that whole idea of throwing it into the sea of forgetfulness, never to be remembered, anymore. You'd hear evangelists talk about it, and there's scriptures here and there that can back some things up, but it is, it is hard. And then on top of that, for 35 years, I've talked about this. And so every time you talk about it, you hear it again, you relive it a little bit again. That's why a lot of aspects of my story I've slowly dropped. I don't talk so much about my sister's deaths and the abuse that they suffered. I don't talk a whole lot about David like I did when he first passed. I kind of get through it and say, here's what the Lord's brought me through, but here's what I'm dealing with today, as a woman of not feeling young and vibrant and pretty. And so, if I told the exact same verbatim testimony that I started out with in 1998, that would be ridiculous. It would show no growth in the Lord. But you're right. I am in a trade. I am in a broken place in life where that esteem problem is fueled, if you let it, by Satan very quickly and very easily. And always wanting to we're never going to have a double award. I had to come to grips with that. I'm probably never going to, what's that little thing they give us, that you've had it, we've all gotten one, some great, I said at the GMA, the Gospel Music Association. Yes,
well, let me tell you.
I said at the Gospel Music Association. Yeah, I would tell you, I said at this thing, and they always gave our award like at 8:00 in the morning. We didn't even make the program, but
let me tell you,
they've changed some of that a little bit, and I have. Well, but when they sat there and I asked the lady who was part of the board of the GMA giving me this, and I said, "Oh, this is wonderful," and she goes, "By the way, who's Grady Nutt?" She didn't even know the bottom line of why we get that award, So it's always those things.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and it's always been, I think, a reality that Christianity, at least in America in the last number of years, hasn't been really great at utilizing the performance arts in a beautiful way, in a productive way. Right. And we should, because it's God's. But I got one of those too. Like you said, but here's a story about this that I found interesting, and it kind of changed me, but it's perfect as an addendum to what you just said. So you and I had a wonderful manager together for a while. His name was Mike Smith. He just passed away, I think, a year ago or so. Wonderful guy, really such a sweet guy, one of the most kindest, friendliest guys I ever knew. And I was just kind of on the scene, maybe 2003, when I kind of got known in the Christian world. Well, anyways, I was, like you said, I was doing comedy that was so different, that was so out of the box and so vibrant. I don't know, whatever it was, but it stood out. And so they said, this guy, got to win this Grady Nutt. Well, first off, I was embarrassed by the name Grady Nutt. It's like this, why does it have to sound like a hee-haw thing right off the bat? It has to be that. That has to be his name. But okay, Grady Nutt Award. Anyways, I win this Grady Nutt Award. Now, that's cool. I mean, all right, well, thanks. I mean, I'm glad people like what I do. Yeah. The next year.
Thank you.
The next year, Chonda.
Oh God!
The next year blows up for me. I mean, I was never huge famous, but I had my year, and that was the year that the New Yorker magazine did an article about me, and it was an 8-page article.
Right.
In New Yorker, called me God's comic. That's where I got the term. So I ended up on CNN. I was doing Promise Keepers, 10,000, 15,000 men. I was selling all kinds of albums. I was on ABC Nightly. I mean, it got a book deal.
So busted, yeah.
I mean, it was my Tonight Show. It was my brass ring when I got that New Yorker. So we go back to these guys and say, look, I mean, thanks for the award for him, but look what he just did. There's never been any comic Christian in history that has done the type of mainstream awareness. This guy has just, he should win it. He should win it again because he's done this crazy thing. So I thought, well, I guess I probably will because that is pretty significant. I don't win. And they gave it to, are you ready? A website. In 2004, you'd have to look it up. There was somebody trying to do a comedy website. I don't think it was Babylon Bee. At least that wouldn't be too bad because everybody. But I'm just telling you this, even though we're being seen by millions of people right now. The moment they gave it to a website that was funny,
you're done.
I said no.
Why would they try to impress these people?
Whoa. Seriously, I said I will never look back at these people again. They are so out of touch with who's actually doing something interesting as a comedian in this field. If you are that lacking in seeing what is actually getting, seriously, I said, I don't give a crap.
No, I totally understand.
I walked away. I never looked back. I've never looked back at them. I could give a crap because they don't know what they're doing at all.
Well, they do when maybe they do with the music world.
No. I'm talking about the comedy. I'm just talking about.
But not with us. They don't know what we're doing. Yeah, and I don't think they care. Because everybody has their lane, and we were allowed to have the bicycle lane for a little while.
Yeah.
The comedians, but we never really got to swerve into the big lane. Into the big world. I'll be bold enough to say I don't even think Mark Lowry has been appreciated as much as he could be. Now he won the Great Nut Humor Award a lot of times, just like I did. I think 2 or 3 times, whatever. And and all of that. But here's a man who wrote the biggest iconic Christmas song ever, and it got an award and everything. But they still, when they would call us, do what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What'd you say?
I said, you mean Rudolph the Red-Nosed?
Oh, well, yeah, good bad joke. But all that to say, when they would call on me, or I will say I was asked to host it one time. It's because they had to move it to Atlanta. I think they were trying to save face with the radio world, and there was something going on behind the scenes about, Whitney Houston had been there and made a mess, and I don't know. There was just, so that they get the good girl, the good old church girl out. She and me and David, what's his name? Anyway, Tyler Perry guy. We hosted it one year, and then one year Sherry Shepherd did, and I did a little bit on there. But the troublesome is, and for Mark too, when they want us to be a part of it, they pull us in to do the stupid stuff. And that, it's the same writer and the same jokes. And I would even ask finally, when I would start being a presenter from time to time, I would go, can I rewrite my part just a little bit? Because I'm not corny. I'm trying really hard not to be. And so all that to say, and I'm like you, I would get disappointed. And then I quit getting disappointed because I quit caring.
Yeah.
It quit being such a goal.
Yeah.
Get disappointed. I've been on The View many times. I'm like you. I've had some crossover opportunities and been with Wanda Sykes. Got ugly letters about it. I've been on a ton of all the Christian media there is to do, and much of the secular there is to do, the CNN and the Fox and all of that. I've had those opportunities, and I loved it. I'm really great. But from there, never really came what I thought was supposed to happen. And I'm like you get kind of surprised because you think, oh, I should just call up the GMA and go, guess what I did today, and let them know. you'd think they would find out, but they really don't. People are traveling in their own lane and they have no idea what's going on with people's ministries and what else they do. I can remember someone from the gospel music world said, I ran across a book that you wrote about depression. And I'm like, well, that's the third one. It's like they don't follow you. And that's okay. And I learned that's okay. They don't have to. The people that need to find out who we are, that's who we're there for. Now we got to do the work. We want to do a good media presence. Right now, social media kicks my butt because when you and I started, honey, there wasn't even a cell phone. You know what I mean? And now we've got all this stuff. Can you remember the days when you'd race to the hotel, but hoping to keep, the kids were still awake or your wife was still awake. You didn't want to wake her up because she's got to go to work, or you do want to wake her up because you miss her so much. That's where we were. Yeah. We were, sharing a bus with 15 people and so it's a bigger business than any one name. Christian comedy is.
But by saying it that way,
you get aggravated.
Yeah, well, the tricky thing though too.
In doing right. Where I do get aggravated, like you said, is when your hard work, you feel you're digging a hole and you feel like it's not paying off. And then there comes a time, and this might be a sensitive subject, a whole nother subject, but there comes a time when you say, maybe I'm not that funny. And then somebody needs to come along and tell you you're not.
Well,
that we kind of that the Christian Comedy Association was going to be that a little bit. Let's educate ourselves. Let's do better. It's kind of more of a spiritual emphasis now, from what I can see in the Christian Comedy Association. But at some point, cream always rises to the top. That's what Mama used to say. But at some point, you got to really train your audience, which I think you've done a great job at. Even I don't care if your ticket is $50, and sometimes my tickets are, which is ridiculous, but whatever that. And I used to tell this on interviews all the time. I don't care if you're a Christian comic, a clean comic, a filthy comic. If you're going to sell a ticket for that hard, you better be $50 worth of funny, or you better be $110 worth of whatever it is that you talk that person into buying. That's what the great challenge came around for me. It really upped my game, and I wanted to give them a great night with whatever elements of the night that I could, because that is someone's hard-earned money. And they chose those extra dollars to use them to see you. So you better be doggone funny. Where I get aggravated is when somebody throws something out there, they finally sell a ticket or two, and they didn't deliver. It's hard for the rest of us to ever sell a ticket again.
Well, you know what's really tricky though, Chonda, and it really is. When I started out in the clubs, I was just a comic trying to see if I could do it because it's so hard, and I did. I made a living doing it, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm a comedian because I make a living doing comedy. And then I moved into the churches, and here's the thing: I didn't know God was going to call me into ministry. Everything has changed as far as who I am. I mean, the comedy is kind of the same, but it's much more a drive towards driving people towards discipleship to go to a deeper level. It's changed everything. I'm not just a comic anymore. It's almost like I'm not. That's just the flavor, the package it comes in. But what's always been hard is when you start out in the business, your job is to make them laugh, they pay, and you get paid for your craft. Well, suddenly when you're trying to add the spiritual realm to it and this beautiful, deeper thing, which we do, but it's hard to differentiate, okay, gee, I didn't get that many numbers to come out and see me. Well, yeah, but that you're thinking like a comic that should have made X amount of dollars or should have brought in people. But if you're thinking about someone trying to minister to somebody, you gave these folks what they needed. And so to try to understand our true purpose as Christ followers who use comedy to tell deeper stories, and to get outside of the mindset of numbers or financial income to prove your value and your worth. It's hard to do because it's like everything in your normal life has an evaluation that you can observe and say that bears fruit. I did this, they paid me that. I do that, they give me that. Okay, I get this. But with the spiritual dimension, that doesn't pan out that way. You may not.
Yeah.
You might have to do something for less money or nothing, because I feel like my value is giving this spiritual world to these folks, and no longer is it about just getting paid as a commodity. Well, it's a hard thing to make that
Right.
and to understand who that is. And so, by all intents and purposes, you're still selling tickets, still selling out places. So you're a success.
Yeah.
You've sold all these things. You're still a success. By any metric, if you're a traveling, touring professional. And yet, how would you say, or would you say, that this same success you've had, and I've also ministered to folks, so there, that dimension is there too.
Yeah.
But in what regard, if you look back at this success of yours, would you say, let me show you where this broke my heart. Let me show you where this very thing absolutely destroyed some things in me in my life that I'll never retrieve. And I don't know how to reconcile if that was a mistake, because I thought I was doing it for God, but it cost me.
Right.
I didn't see this coming, but it cost me this. How do you kind of figure out, was this God's call and there was a sacrifice, or did I
Yeah.
miss it somewhere? How
That's
do
a
you figure that
really
out?
great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really, really great question. And you're right. It's hard to answer because we have a lot of people viewing in, you know, and you don't want to, I don't want to discourage them in my walk with the Lord. But I will say this. The traveling evangelist back in the day, if you're an evangelist, and they would always have a couple of funny little stories at the beginning of their sermon to perk everybody up, and they get into their sermon. But for the most part, the meat of what they were called to do was to evangelize. That's why they call them evangelists. A pastor is called to come to your church to pastor a group of people, to guide them like you would a pastor, a shepherd. The majority, he could be a really great preacher. I happen to be blessed that I sat under Alan Jackson for so many years. So he's a really great teacher. You know, I'm very blessed. I've heard great preachers in my life. But the majority of who he is at World Outreach Church, he is our pastor. He is a pastor and a shepherd, and he shepherds. But what he does on the side, now he's got a little podcast and things like that are just growing the word. But he would tell you what pays his mortgage is being a pastor. What pays my mortgage is the whole package of Chonda Pierce. Yeah. I used to try to say it was just being a comedian. I'm just a comedian because that would help me get out of the fearful of not being a good minister. You know what I mean? And that way would say, you know, the ministry aspect of it was such an added highlight, you know, that I would be like, oh, I'm so glad the night meant something to you. But in essence, it really was the number one thing for me, you know, was ministry. And I had to come to grips with that even not so long ago. And I'm sure they've already heard this, so I can say it. But there was a time a couple of years ago, and maybe even as much as a month or two ago, that I really thought they were going to ask me to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. That is a personal, private goal of mine. I've been on the Opry a lot. In the last 30 years, I've probably been on the Opry 100 times, you know, as the years go by. Some GMs are a little nicer about me, some are not, you know, but I would always float around and do the Opry a couple of times a year. And even after Miss Minnie died, I did it a lot after that. And then they made Henry Cho a member. And Henry Cho and Gary Muledeer, members of the Opry. And you probably know Henry Cho from the club days. I don't. He's a great young man.
Yeah.
Yes, very good young man. Great Christian guy. He doesn't call himself a Christian comedian or whatever, but he's like, he does clubs and all that. a really hilarious, funny guy. But I just thought I would be the next comedian, to be asked. I've worked really hard, when every jokes that I do there, I make them funny and, really do my best stuff, to make the crowd laugh. The audience always seems to like me. And when they made Henry and Joe, when that came out in the news, that was one of those moments for me going, that just destroyed me. Because I'm like, here I have this whole list of accolades and selling, I've got a lot of gold records and I'm selling thousands of tickets a night, every night still after 35 years, so I don't, what is wrong with me? And I thought maybe it's because my focus has always really been about ministry.
Yeah.
And so I made it think, okay, maybe that's it. That the majority of my world is in the Christian world, the church world. So maybe that's why they didn't ask, but maybe my time's coming. Well, then I was there to honor Miss Minnie one night. And a little bit after that, I learned that they made Stephen Curtis Chapman a member. And his entire life has been nothing but Christian music. Nothing but Christian music. And at least I've had comedy where you can do things, on television and stuff and movies. And then I realized, so it wasn't, I couldn't say that it really was that I focus on ministry too much. So now I don't know why I'm not a member. We can't seem to get an answer, blah, blah. And then it hit me. I am begging for something that may not be in God's plan. And as much as they would like me to be a member, or as much as they don't want me to be a member, you have to start believing I am where God put me.
Yeah.
And you can do the best you can to sell all the tickets. I know people who are so much funnier than you and I. Why they aren't selling thousands of tickets every night, I do not know. They've got good social presence, but yet nobody clicks the likes. I have over 1 million followers on Facebook, and that doesn't include Instagram and all these things. I don't know how that happens, other than God places you where you want to be. Now, that's a crappy answer for those who are working their butts off to get where we are. Yeah. And I don't know how else to help them with that,
Well, and it's so difficult because, like I said, even though we minister, we are a performer, an entity, a product that we also are attached to. It's very personal. It's us doing our stuff the way we wrote it.
Right.
And so it's hard to, if they reject you or they don't think you're funny, it's kind of like a personal attack. And it's very interesting because I had the same experience where I kind of came into this Christian comedy world where there really wasn't many folks doing it. Matter of fact, when I kind of jumped in, it was you, it was Mark Lowry, it was maybe Jeff Allen had dipped his toe in at that point, Ken Davis. So there was a few folks, but certainly not as many as we have now. And I really tried to, and obviously I was a maverick. Obviously I stood out because nobody had done it like that. And it was,
obviously, none of us thought you liked any of us.
Yeah. Well,
this is true. And then we would all get together and go, that Brad, he's so good, but man, I don't think he likes any of us. He's
no.
Mr.
Well, that's not true at all.
Mr. Hotshot in the class. No, what I'm saying is, and then I get to know you and go, he's a pussycat. He's got the sweet heart. Yeah. But it's true. Your style is hit hard. Mine is okay, guys. Let's talk about our style.
Here's something interesting. I'll be vulnerable. Yeah. I'll be vulnerable with you for a moment. And again, because I think it's helpful to others who listen and watch these things, believers who are trying to walk it out. So I did this thing. And it's hard to evaluate your own worth or whatever, but you kind of can tell if you've done something interesting. And like you said, or I talked about you have real proof of what you've accomplished. So it's not up for grabs. You have some success that others don't. Okay. So, but you do believe as a human that that should come with certain perks. There should be some things like Grand Ole Opry, or that should, because I kind of did about as much as a person can do. How did this not pan out? And then somebody else gets it, and it's almost impossible to not feel jealous, to not feel slighted. And the same thing happened to me, and I can say this because I already admitted it. The thing happened to me with Tim Hawkins. He came in and he blew the scene up. Great comic, wonderful.
Blew everybody away.
Yeah, and just blew the doors off them. But he's talented. He deserves that. But
Right.
I suffered from covetousness. Now, I want you to know something. There's a difference, and you know this, between jealousy and covetousness. Jealousy is,
Yes.
gee, I wish I had that. Covetousness,
Yes.
covetousness is evil because it's in the Ten Commandments, because you're saying, I want yours. That was mine. You took my.
Wow, that's true.
You took my status.
You took my life.
You
Right.
took my status. You took my career. You took what was I was trying to create and craft. You came behind me, blazing the trail for crazy comics, and suddenly you blew. And so I realized, who do I think I am? This is none of my business. I'm a Christ follower. This is your life, Father. You do what you want with it. Who do I think I am? And I admitted it to him. I apologized. So I didn't have to. I wasn't going around.
No.
I wasn't going around.
That was very big.
I didn't go around besmirching him, but I wanted him to know that that's a part of me that was exposed, that made me
Wow.
think less of myself. And the other reason I bring that up is it's so difficult to separate ourselves from that. And the reason I bring this up, I don't know if this makes sense, and I hope it also doesn't come across in some odd way, but you kind of blaze this trail as this sort of Southern gal, kind of sweet, all shucksy, but kind of, underneath there's some rascal in there or whatever. And if you think about this, and I don't think you would have, but I'm just talking comic to comic, it almost makes me feel like, wait a minute, and we have to admit it because it's out there. She did Leanne Morgan before Leanne Morgan was here. So what happened? That was supposed to be hers.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking that for you, because
what used to kill me, especially, and I love her. I watched her stuff. I think she's funny. I will say, because we're women and we're both Southern, hit a topic yet that I haven't done in my sleep. You know what I mean? That's been done for forever and ever and ever. I haven't heard like a total take on something other than if it's her own personal life story. Of course, I don't do that. But you're exactly right. When she came on the scene, I would tell my manager, I would call him and going, where's my Netflix show? You know what I mean? I have a larger following than she does, but as she got on the scene and she's really funny and she got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now she's huge. I would really get jealous when I would see my friends, my peers have their picture made with her. You know what I mean? Or, John Chris come along and he's huge, mongus, and I go, and he's hanging out with Nate Bargatze, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I helped pave the road, And some of that is true. I think on the good side of that, that's why the Proverbs talks about iron sharpening iron. That conversations like this is iron sharpening iron. Yeah. It helps us to go, oh, okay, I felt that way. What you just said about covet is the sin part of it. Jealous might keep you go out there to be a little funnier. The Leanne Morgan thing is, man, I praise the Lord for her. When I was her age, I was not making the right choices, and I didn't have the perfect people surrounded me to get it right. And I don't know anything about her personal life. I don't know that she's a believer. I would guess that she is, because she talks about going to church and all that. I don't know a lot about her personally, and I try to avoid it because there's a danger because of that very thing. It's the danger to listen to somebody and go, they've stolen my life. They've stolen my life. And you're so sweet to talk about Tim. I can remember Tim when he was first on the scene, and he gave me a VHS tape of himself, and I thought he was weird, you know what I mean? But he was so goofy looking that he was funny, you know what I mean? And the depth of his material, I didn't think was all that funny, but he could write those funny songs, you know, and he's a great musician, you know, and so you know, and watching him grow, and we share the same promoter, we share the same bus. He takes it out one weekend, and I take it out one weekend. You know, we share the same manager now. And Tim, I've watched him go through the steps and the levels of getting his head on straight when it comes to success. And what is success? But what I also, and you probably know this about him, and I love about you, I try to go into a performance life in knowing I don't know it all. I don't know at all about everything about there is to know about comedy. I know that some people are going to like me and some people aren't. I was surfing the internet one night late at night, and I Googled my own name, and something popped up, and there are these comics who have a podcast, and they're absolutely filthy. Very, very nasty. I don't think they can construct a word, I mean, a sentence without the F word, and every demeaning word they can say about women, they use them often. But they were critiquing me as a comedian, and they were critiquing Laughing in the Dark, which, first of all, is a documentary. It was not a comedy special, but they called it a comedy special, and it was on Netflix and all that. And it was the most horrible things they said. From everything from, if I was her daughter, I wouldn't want anything to do with her either. It's a good thing her husband's dead, because, man, I would kill myself if I was stuck married to her. I mean, what they said was horrible. And it hurt me so much. It wasn't just critiquing my comedy. It really was a horrible thing to say about another human being. Yeah. I wouldn't say things like that about Dave Chappelle. And he cusses like a sailor, but I think he's a brilliant comedian. You know, I probably wouldn't go see him, but I've seen things that he does, and he's very funny. But all that to say, it was so painful. It was so painful. And it was one of those moments where you go, if that's what the comedy world, the club comedy world is like, I don't want anything to do with it. Mm. I've heard stories from you where people will turn off a microphone on purpose, or they'll give you a little trip as you go up the stage. The cutthroat, just the cutthroat. That's not sharpening iron. No, that's not. But I'll tell you what is iron sharpening iron is when a guy like John Max, who is Billy's writer, he wrote for Robin Williams for years. He writes all the Golden Globes, all this. He's a great writer. When he sits and tells me, this story you told here, here's where you're missing it, that you need to get to this point faster. You need to drop these two words. They're useless words, blah, blah. And then he puts it where it's just a boom, boom, and it worked. I can do that. And I can be critiqued by him. Yeah. Because he's really about the craft. Yeah, yeah. And I can be willing to learn something. And that's what the bottom line for everybody. No matter the level of your success, are you in a place where iron sharpens iron? Spiritually, with your craft, with your life, with your finances? Are you surrounding yourself with people that are making you better? And then are you willing to listen to them? Mm. And I think that's maybe the point of this whole hour together. What is that? Be willing to learn and be willing to be proud of your success, which you know I struggle with that, but then also be willing to work at it. It's okay to work. And I wish I could tell you there was a formula. But when you give your life to God and you really say, my life is not mine anymore, then it is learning to be content where he places you.
Amen. Well, if you were to look back in your life, your ministry, your career, your family, ups and downs like everybody, horrifyingly difficult moments, and I'm sure ecstatic moments, you know, it's the journey.
Yes.
But yeah. I mean, it's always hard to make this answer because, you know, your life kind of maybe almost is destined to be the way it is. Sometimes you think, I wish I'd done this or done that, but you go, well,
Absolutely.
I wasn't really mature enough then to frankly do that. So I guess it had to wait. But is there any regrets? If there was one thing you could say, this is okay, but give me one thing that, and again, not just to find some titillating thing about Chonda Pierce, but perhaps again to help somebody out there. If there's one thing that might even translate into other people's lives that aren't in entertainment, but are trying to navigate life and say, here's something I learned, a principle I learned that you have to make sure you keep straight because this will derail you. Is there one thing that you could really say, this was something I wish I had done differently? What would that be?
Yeah, we would have to do a whole nother hour for the list. You have to be regret. You have to be careful about regret because it can lead to being shame based. So I have a lot of regret that really just is really regretting sin or not paying attention. You know, I went broke twice in my career because, you know, David wasn't watching the store and I wasn't paying attention. And so we had a couple of people that were not kind to us financially, you know, that was rough, you know. But at the same time, I think the one thing I would have started faster than I did, and I would maintain it to this very day, is someone in my corner that is spiritually minded about what I do and why I do it. That's not on the payroll. That's not my yes person. That it is not, but I would seek that person, which is probably why I won't date somebody unless I know that there's a man out there that loves God more than he loves me. And I had a man that loved me. Yeah, I broke up with somebody. I dated somebody for 5 months. That's a record for 12 years of being single. But I need a spiritual leader in my life that I'm willing to listen to. And when you find one, whatever that is, whether they are, a brother, a sister, a tour manager, a pastor, that's gold. That is gold. And if you're going to call yourself a Christ follower, no matter what you do for a living, whether it's in front of people or painting somebody's house, that person, because that iron sharpens iron person, is what's going to manufacture in you a perfection that God wanted you to have. The gift that God gave you, he's going to sharpen that gift like nobody's business. You'll be the most successful person that paints houses, and you'll be so happy. You'll be the funniest comic and with lots of bling on the wall, but you won't have such sadness of, it cost me a family. That's the one thing I would tell every comic and every human being out there. I see the Justin Biebers of the world and the people coming up and finding Jesus, and like the latest tabloid mess in the Christian music world and who's fallen from grace. And the bottom line, somewhere along the way, that spiritual leader they allowed in their life faded away, or they got somebody new, or they didn't like the things they had to say. It convicted them too much and they wanted to be the star. And so that's what it always is. You did not pick up somebody that was going to sharpen you.
And in the entertainment business, where we kind of are the boss, we're the ones that are given the accolades and
commodity.
How wonderful that,
Right.
It can be difficult, and it might even translate into a challenge for you with that.
Yes.
If some other man comes into your life, because you're kind of used to running the show, and it's difficult.
I did even when I was married. And if he was here today, he would tell you the same. We know where we messed up. And we were just kind of getting it together when the Lord took him home.
I remember coming years ago.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
David loved you. He loved you. He'd always go, you gotta push it like Brad Stein does, hon.
Well, David was a great guy, and I always enjoyed talking to him. I remember many years ago, I flew into Nashville Airport late at night, and like we do, and I don't know if you do flights much anymore, but anyways, I was there, and it was late, and you're tired, and you're kind of dragging. and I'm walking to baggage claim. This is before they've made it as big as it is now. And it was late at night. And I'm walking towards it, and right in front of me, I don't know, 20 feet, 30 feet, was Chonda Pierce and her husband. And they were holding hands. They were holding hands and walking to baggage claim. And I thought, good on you, Chonda. I mean, you got this beautiful little life with your husband who came to see you and grabbed your hand, glad you're home. And let's go get our bags and go home, baby. And I just remembered that. I thought it was so sweet and poignant. And in the end, we're just people. Yeah, we're just humans. We're probably in some ways,
Absolutely.
we're probably some ways more vulnerable in many ways. We've gone out of our way to give the illusion that we've got it together because it's the only way we learn how to survive from the pain and trauma that we have to endure, as have everyone. So folks, I hope that if Chonda and I, if you've ever seen our shows or watched it and it made you laugh and it brought you some joy and maybe it inspired something and made you feel good about yourself. And I hope even in this conversation that you see, we're just people. We're not the thing that you think we are because we're on a stage with all the light and a big mic and we're loud and we're funny and everybody laughs and we control the world. And it's like, well, we kind of do that. Yeah. But we don't see it that way. We don't see ourselves as better. We don't see ourselves as superior. Our job just happens to be like this. That gives the illusion that we are bigger than life. And trust me when I say, when we get home, we're really just trying to figure out, do I have any idea what I'm doing? Because I don't know what the heck is going on. But Chonda, it's been great to talk to you. Certainly been good to know you all these years and have the conversations. I hope we can do it again. We always have some deep things and so forth. But thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your life. Thank you for your vulnerability. And hopefully we'll get you on to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry. That's what has to happen.
Well, you never know. You never know. Yeah, well, I said all that, and they're going to go, now that Brad has interviewed her, okay, now she can be in.
They've just been waiting for, this was the final straw.
That's it.
They called me just earlier and said, all right, if you put her on, now there's nothing.
If you like her, okay, yeah.
But anyways, thank you.
I love you, my friend.
How can people follow you? How can they follow you? Just
Chonda, Facebook a lot. I'm still the old-fashioned Facebook girl, but Chonda.org is my website, and tour takes off. I'm headed to Israel at the end of the month. End of February with Governor Huckabee yet again. Oh, Ambassador Huckabee.
Nice.
And then I kick it off again. 1st of March. We work hard.
Well, someday, Chonda.
Hey, by the way, I'm taking some comics. I'm taking some comics with me this time.
To where?
Heatherland and June on the road for the spring.
I just did a movie with Heatherland a couple of years ago. I was in a movie.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah, she is sweet. Well, listen, one day before we're dead, we should try to do a show together. We have never done a show together. I'd love to try to do something someday.
True.
In our entire
We've been at the same events, but you're right. We've never really done a show.
Never done something together. I'd love to see if we could find something someday just to have the fun of having done it together. But folks, this is Chonda Pierce. She's a wonderful woman, a woman of God. She seeks the living God, and she's a great inspiration. Go see her, go watch her, buy tickets, buy her stuff, give her even more gold albums. She doesn't have enough. And keep her in the loop. But folks, remember this. To seek Christ is the only answer to your issues. It's the only thing that will find the balance, the only thing that will make it all make sense. It will not be easier. It might be harder, but at least you'll know who you are, because the only one that can tell you who you are is the one that made you. Folks, if they ever tell you you're being politically incorrect, always say, thank you for the compliment. It means that you are not going to censor yourself. You're going to speak truth, because as a Christ follower, we're the last truth tellers on earth. I'm just a comic, but I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, which is putting the woke back to sleep. See you next month.